It's time for the Financial Crisis Talk Center with Ken Gross and David Einstandig from Thav Gross.
Credit card debt is number one. I view it as financial cancer.
40% of your gross income is going to just pay the debt service. You got no chance of getting out.
I would give up my credit score to get rid of debt.
Here's your host, Ken Gross.
Welcome to the Financial Crisis Talk Center. This is the second segment. We're going to cover today. We're going to look through and we're going to do a case study on the study of Jerry and Sarah. This is the loan modification that went south. And then we're going to walk through that. We've got a seminar to announce, and then and take you through this one step at a time. Before we get into that too far, there was an interesting article on new home sales actually tumbled last month, and I thought it was interesting from the standpoint that it was almost counterintuitive to what we're seeing in the marketplace and the excitement that we're seeing in housing. And I don't know that you can place that much emphasis on it. But what the report was, it came out on the 23rd, was new home sales fell 13.4% from June to an annual pace around 394,000. And they were hoping more, I think, in the 550 pace.
Is that defined as new construction?
That's new construction. And how they tally that is it's when this contract is signed, not when the house is closed. So what that means is the pipeline has narrowed, and they're attributing it to the fact that interest rates on a 30-year conventional have creeped up to about 4.58%. They were down, in the threes about 6 months ago.
Yeah, but 4.58 historically is still a great rate.
It is a great rate, but just as we discussed in the last segment, that interest rates with regard to what you're going to earn on your pension, the big difference between 7 and 8%. There's a big difference in the minds of the individual purchasing between something below 4 and something below 5.
Not only the mind, it's also how much of a house you can qualify for. In fact, you see a lot of TV commercials that advertise exactly that, saying you better act now before interest rates go up, because that 1% bump in the interest rate translates to a $300-400 difference in the payment. That then goes into the module of how much can you obtain for the loan. And if all of a sudden the new home you're trying to buy is $300,000 and you need a $260,000 mortgage, but now with this bump in interest rates you're only qualifying for a $220,000 mortgage, then you're out of the market until your income goes up. So I think those are the pressures. The economist that was cited in this says, "It is certainly a warning sign that conditions in the housing market are nowhere near as rosy as home builders, real estate agents, and their enablers in the media," that's a pretty sarcastic comment there, "are so keen to represent." This is Joshua Shapiro from MFR Inc. Was his position. I don't know that he's right or that he's wrong, but I think what it says to me is the chances of us seeing a sustained, continue 15% increase in property values on used homes like we saw last year to this year is probably doubtful for next year.
Well, in the office, have you seen a huge bump one way or the other, the number of clients that are building homes?
I've seen a huge bump in the number of new homes that are out on the market in Metro Detroit for sale. There's developments going up all over the place. And I've also noticed, like in my subdivision, a lot of used homes are going up for sale. I've seen in the last month. I think it's because people have been locked in for a long time underwater, and now I think some of them think that they're close enough that they can get out from under it, and they've probably wanted to get out, and they had to wait for 5 years.
Well, I can tell you this. I was recently at a client's grand opening in Lyon Township, and the township officials were there to cut the ribbon with the client. This was last week. And they were saying that across the street, there's going to be a subdivision of about 75 new homes. And within a mile, there's going to be another approximately 250 to 300 new homes built, single-family residential homes, which is significant in today's economy.
Yeah, and as that takes off and there's more of that availability, will then put a little bit of downward pressure on the used home market.
I don't think so. I think the used home market still is under utilized at the moment. You cannot find any inventory to buy a used home right now. There's at least 30 buyers for every home that's up there right now.
That's true, but it's less true in the month of August and September compared to there was in July and June.
Well, remember
so they're
why,
already saying.
Yeah, but remember why people want to buy a used home, an existing home. Most people are trying to get into a new home because of either a job transfer that happens during the rest of the year, or just because it's time to get a new house. But reality is, springtime is when people buy homes so they can be situated for the school year.
For the kids, right? But that doesn't. So you don't know that where you'll be next spring. Then, is what you're saying.
Basically.
I mean, you're saying there's. I don't know that we're going to have 30 offers for every house on the market when we get to March, like we had last April or last May. That's time will tell. This report would indicate things are not quite as rosy as they appear to be.
Well, remember recently we discussed the purchase of most homes is cash now. So the mortgage industry isn't really involved in that.
Yeah, we talked about it in the last second, except that I think that number is skewed because the homes that are selling in the under $100,000 market, those are being gobbled up by investors, and those are cash. And I think that probably overstates the percentage. If you go into the suburb house, the 2-car garage, the 3 or 4 bedroom home that's going to be somewhere between $180,000 and $250,000 a year.
90% of those, in my opinion,
are still mortgages. Who's got that kind of cash?
No, I mean there
are
lotto
winners.
I mean, no, there are people who are looking for homes and they don't qualify for mortgages, so they end up utilizing their funds, and they are well off enough to go ahead and purchase it via cash. So, I mean,
you got that kind of cash? I don't have that kind of cash.
Hey, I'm not going to comment. But
Whoa!
But seriously. And so when you come into a situation, when you come into a situation like that, let's say you buy a home for cash and you find out that, hey, I actually do need some money. You know, I need to actually mortgage this home. Like what options are out there? I mean, are there any?
Well, there's always private financing. This still does exist on certain levels. There's also being able to mortgage for less than what you actually own the house for.
The range of options is certainly a lot narrower than it used to be. It used to be you could just qualify for a mortgage if you had some down payment money.
You had a house.
You didn't have to show any income
you were
or
breathing.
anything. Now you can
breath in a heartbeat.
You can try and get seller financing, but when in a market where houses are in demand, the seller would rather have a cash, or he'd rather be cashed out with the buyer getting a mortgage. It's the house that's hard to move on the market where the seller will finance it on a land contract. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we're gonna get into. I got a seminar to announce and some housekeeping matters to take care of, and then we're gonna get into a case study of the loan modification that went south and how you use a Chapter 13 bankruptcy to solve that problem, and maybe even afterwards get a loan modification. We'll take a break.
I couldn't get out of the car. I couldn't run or exercise. I couldn't work.
Dr. Lewis Radin believes that pain shouldn't have to wait. His Spine Specialist of Michigan is a comprehensive center dedicated to helping you manage pain now. Expect the latest techniques and personalized care. Why suffer another minute?
He's the best. I tell people that he's the one that saved my life.
Make your appointment with Dr. Radin. Call 248-792-9496.
If your house is underwater, please listen to this important message.
The rules have finally changed. We're seeing some great loan modifications with reduced principal, and short sales are easier to get done than people think. The biggest problems I see are people wait too long, or they try and do it themselves. There are no second chances.
If you're underwater in your house, call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
No one ever thinks that a serious injury can happen to them, but it can, and it does. And it can happen to you. And when it does, you need a fighter in that courtroom for you. Call me, Ben Johnson. Automobile accident, police misconduct, medical malpractice, product liability. You know what you're up against, how hard it is to get answers. When all you want is justice, call me, Ben Johnson. Whatever your legal crisis, I will fight for you. Call me today.
Do you have tax problems, unfiled returns, facing levies on wages in your property? You need an expert, not a cartoon character or salesman. Thav Gross is your solution.
You need to look at the big picture. That's what we do. We develop a plan that's right for you.
I had major tax problems. I didn't know what to do. We did. We sat down together and solved your tax problem. No more letters, no more phone calls. They saved me.
Call Thav Gross, 888-235-HELP.
Going from hourly to salary seemed like a good career move, but now you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40, and you aren't getting paid any of that extra time. You're stuck, right? Wrong. You can be on salary and still be entitled to overtime. If you've been wrongly denied such pay, you may be entitled to that and more. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
All right, welcome back. I've got Brian Small, Frida Bowden, David Einstanding with me. We're talking about, in this segment, the loan modification that went south. Before we get to it, I want to announce we've got a seminar coming up. It's our first one of the fall called Resolving Your Finances. It's Tuesday, September 17th. 6:30 to 8 p.m. at our office building in Bingham Farms. That's at 12.5 and Telegraph. This is your chance to really get the information that you need in terms of what are the smart options and plays that you can make if you're dealing with issues. And people need to understand something. If you're carrying $80,000 of credit card debt and you're paying $14,000 to $16,000 a year in interest on that credit card, I don't care what your credit score is. I don't care how much money you're making. You are making a miserable, stupid mistake, because that $14,000 a year in interest you're paying to the credit card industry, you got to make $20,000 in income just to pay the taxes to get the $14,000 to give to the banks. And it's going to be year after year after year you keep paying it. If you could figure a way of getting rid of that debt and putting that money into your 401k or an IRA or into a savings account that grows at 5 to 7 to 8% interest, instead of getting to be 65 years old and having $20,000 to retire off of, you could have $1 million.
If you're getting ready next week to send your kids to school so they can garner knowledge and information to make informed, logical decisions with their lives, you owe it to yourself to spend a couple hours on the 17th to do that with respect to your current situation.
Yeah. So the message that we try and get out to people is that it's not a question of financial crisis, meaning they're coming to take the furniture out of your house because you're being put on the street. Clearly, that's a financial crisis that we can help people with and we address, but it's a much broader scope. What if your children are financially in trouble and you're solid, but you're worried about and you die, you leave your entire estate to your kids, and then it's going to go to their creditors? There's multiple, or another one. What if your parents have a house that's underwater by $200,000, and they also have $300,000 of cash in the bank? They're not wealthy, but they're comfortable for the fact that they're in their late 80s and they got Social Security. They die. The lender has a claim against the estate for the $200,000 that the house is underwater. So goes the $300,000 that's sitting in the CDs unless they take action.
Or you're sitting at the gym and you're pumping your iron, and Steve next to you says, "Oh yeah, you should put your kid on the deed just in case something happens to you to your house that you have $200,000 of equity in." And all of a sudden, Junior files a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and then what happens? You knock on the door.
That causes Brian to lose his hair when that happens.
You lose the money.
It's a little late for that.
They take the house.
You know why? Because it's happened 100,000 times, and every time it happened, you lost a follicle of hair. And where's that left you now?
Bald and beautiful.
If we can turn that around, it would be like Asia or whatever it's called.
I could take that and go to places that you just don't want to go. You just
and why does that not surprise me?
But all I gotta say is chubby checker.
No, but the issue is fear. You know, there is fear of what to do financially, and taking information and advice from those who don't really know what they're talking about. From your friends and family, it's just not enough, especially with the changing economy and the changing rules and regulations.
Jerry, the bartender, is qualified to give you domestic advice,
exactly,
but he's not qualified to give you financial advice, because if he's a former financial planner or guru and he's now a bartender, he probably wasn't that great of a financial advisor to begin with.
He's qualified to give you a domestic beer.
Yes. I was kidding about the domestic advice as well. If you want to sign up for the seminar, go to our website, stavgross.com, fctalkcenter.com. You can also do it the old American way. You pick up the telephone and you dial 888-235-HELP, and we'll register you that way.
Let's get to Tallahassee.
Before we get to the case study, I want to also thank our sponsors, Venn Johnson Law. Venn Johnson is the ultimate when it comes to personal injury attorney from the standpoint, if you've got a personal injury, you've been injured, you need a good, tough trial lawyer. Venn's the fighter. He does a good job. Gold Star Law, employment law. Their commercials are everywhere. I hear them all the time, but they're really in tune. If all of a sudden you're being forced to work overtime and you're not getting paid for it, you've got claims, you've got issues. If you're being harassed at your job, those are the people to call over at Gold Star. Samasco Law, Pat was on the show recently. Great elder law attorney. When you have that situation where you're elderly, headed to a nursing home, if you keep living, but you have assets in your estate, you need to do planning, otherwise the state ends up gobbling up all your assets. Double Action Shooting Range and Gun Shop, Al Allen over there. Every time there's a shooting and a problem, his business must be good this week because there was more violence out in the marketplace, so we don't have to worry too much about Allen. Every time something bad happens in the world, people start buying more guns. What a great country. Spine Specialists of Michigan, Dr. Lou Radden there, board-certified osteopathic medicine, surgery, great doc. He's in Bingham Farms. We really appreciate the support. All right, now let's talk about our friends Jerry and Sarah, the loan mod that went south. Here's the background. They took an income hit in 2010 during the financial crisis. They were making $12,000 a month. Now they're only making $7,000 a month gross. So what did they do? They wanted to keep their home. In 2012, they applied for a loan modification. They haven't made a payment on their house since August of 2012 for 12 months while the modification is pending. Their lender, Bank of America, this is a hypothetical case, so nothing in here is factual from the standpoint of the story. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, and in the case of the lenders, to protect the guilty. So that's a joke, in case anybody was catching it. They just got a foreclosure, not a foreclosure letter. They got a denial on their loan mod, and the letter says, you're now going to foreclosure. They've spent a year working on this loan mod. They were told they'd be able to get one. They were anticipating getting an approval letter. After 20 times telling them we need more information, we need this, we need that, we need this, then all of a sudden this...
No soup
for you. Letter comes in the mail. You're headed to foreclosure. They're now coming in to see us. We're going to figure out what can they do after the break.
You like your job. What you don't like is the way your boss has been treating you. He's making comments about how you look instead of your work, and he's been touching you inappropriately. If you complain, is he allowed to fire you? Absolutely not. Unwelcome sexual comments, advances in contact are illegal in the workplace. Make him pay. Gold Star Law is here to help you through your employment law problem, whatever it is.
Gold Star Law, protecting employees' rights. Call 1-800-WAGES-10 for a free consultation today.
Every family has the family meeting, and we all know what that means. Dad's got dementia. What are we going to do? What's the care plan that the family has in place? Usually they don't, or they struggle with a care plan. When you go home tonight and you talk to your tax person and you talk to your financial person, say, what's the plan that you have in place? And as soon as they don't give you an answer, give me a call, because I can do it for you.
Financially strapped? Do you want to save your home?
It's all about preserving future income. Bankruptcy is one option. When it's right, it's the least costly, most effective way to save your home, eliminate a second mortgage, and wipe out credit card debt. But you need to address the problem now.
We help people with bankruptcy. Call the experts.
We're Thav Gross. Our firm will solve your problem.
888-235-HELP. That's 888-235-HELP.
Double Action, shooting center and gun shop. For the largest selection of guns, accessories, and ammunition, Double Action is your only pro gun shop. And now you can train with the best in our basic CCW course with the most comprehensive curriculum, the best resources, and most accomplished staff. Don't be fooled by cheap imitations. Double Action is the only place to get your CCW or renewal. Double Action. We're on DeQuinder and Madison Heights.
No one ever thinks that a serious injury can happen to them, but it can, and it does. And it can happen to you. And when it does, you need a fighter in that courtroom for you. Call me, Ben Johnson. Automobile accident, police misconduct, medical malpractice, product liability. You know what you're up against, how hard it is to get answers. When all you want is justice, call me, Ben Johnson. Whatever your legal crisis, I will fight for you. Call me today.
All right, welcome back. All right, we're going through a case study for Jerry and Sarah. I gave you before the break the basics. They're now getting a letter saying they're going to foreclosure. They're not going to get a loan mod. Let me give you a few facts that are relevant. Bank of America is their first mortgage. They owe $290,000. The current it was a $290,000 mortgage. They currently owe $275,000. Their payment is $1,880 a month, principal and interest, plus $650 for taxes and insurance. So their total payment is $2,480. Think $2,500 in your head. They have a second mortgage with Chase for $75,000. They've got credit card debt of $80,000, and the payment on that costs them $2,000 a month right now. They got a couple car loans for $350 each for their car payments, so it's $700 a month. Their house was worth in 2005 $375,000. In 2010 it was worth $225,000, and today it's worth $260,000. Those are the key facts. Now, here's what we have to analyze in terms of how do we help them? What can we do for Jerry and Sarah? The first question I would ask, or Brian would ask if we were faced with this, is should they have qualified for a loan modification with Bank of America?
Well, clearly the answer to that is yes, numerically speaking, because if you look at their gross monthly income of $7,000 now, 31% of that is $2,170. Remember, we said that their mortgage payment was $2,500, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. $2,170 is less than $2,500. Therefore, since 31% of their gross income is less than their current mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, they should have been eligible for a loan modification.
And that's under the HAMP federal program that we've talked about a million times on
so what
the
do you
show
do?
over the last 4 or 5 years.
Do?
Well, but they're now getting the letter saying they're going to foreclosure. The next question is if they were in the 3205 process, which in Michigan, we've talked about it before a lender can foreclose, they have to give you notice and you have a right to ask for a mediation. When clients come into us and ahead of time, we always ask for that mediation to preserve our rights so that, number one, it gives us a law firm to negotiate and talk to locally, which is another way of communicating with the lender. And it also gives us an opportunity to object and appeal and to say you're not doing it correctly and we have rights. Too often, though, the client comes to us. They've tried to get their own loan modification. They didn't respond to the 3205, the letter, by sending in the letter within 30 days saying they want a mediation. And therefore, in that circumstance, we don't have that process. So now we have two choices. We either have to file a lawsuit in circuit court to try and stop the foreclosure. We could try and send a letter to the executive department of the lender saying, you should have granted these people a modification. You didn't. It's a mistake. You should stop the foreclosure and let us look at it. We've tried that before. Sometimes it's succeeded. But it's a long shot because once they advertise the property for sale, 5 weeks later it goes to sale, you have to stop that process. Otherwise, it keeps going and the problem becomes unresolvable.
So if you seek to file a court case, you would have to also prevail on some type of injunction with the judge, somewhat costly, highly unknown, I can tell you. So then there's another alternative potentially that you don't have to achieve that.
And not only Brian's that alternative is Chapter 13 bankruptcy, something that this client should have actually done 12 months earlier before they even sought out the loan modification.
Because of their facts.
Because of their facts.
Explain to us why you said that.
This client has $80,000 worth of credit card debt. This client has a $75,000 second mortgage, and they're underwater on their first mortgage. The opportunity to lien strip your second mortgage, meaning remove it as a secured debt and treat it like it's an unsecured debt, just like a credit card is treated in a Chapter 13, is the great grand opportunity.
So in that case, you end up with your $80,000 of credit card debt plus your $75,000 second mortgage. You now have $155,000 that's treated the same as credit card debt. And how much do they get paid? Very little?
Well, they get paid whatever is available by percentage of income after the allowed expenses. In this case, this client has about $800 left over between what their second mortgage payment was and what they have available for credit card debt, which is about $324. Remember, they're paying $2,000 a month every month on their credit cards, but they haven't been paying their mortgage payment. So when you move all that money around and shuffle it in their budget, you find out that they only have $324 left over after they've paid their second mortgage payment. Add the $324 to the mortgage payment, and that's how much money for 60 months they're going to be able to pay. They're going to have to pay back towards their creditors.
All right, so now the key is they've got to file this case before it goes to sale.
Because if you go to sale, you're done. There's nothing you can do after that.
Now, just so everyone understands the terms, going to sale is when the auction occurs on the foreclosure. They tell you the date. That means you have to get in and file the Chapter 13 before that date. That stops the sale. Now, in a Chapter 13, at that point, what are your absolute rights there? Does that mean do you get a loan modification by filing a Chapter 13? What does that mean? Well, and we're going to probably have to carry this over to the next segment, but give us what does that mean when you file the Chapter 13?
When you file the Chapter 13, the first thing it does is it decelerates the demand by the bank to cure the arrearage. Remember, these people have not paid a mortgage payment in 12 months. The bank says, here are your options. In 3 weeks, we're going to sell your house. You have the right to A, let it go to sale, or B, write us a check. When you file the Chapter 13 bankruptcy, instead of writing them a check for $29,000 instantly, what happens is you get to spread that arrearage out over up to 60 months.
All right, so in this case, they're 12 months behind on their payments, so that's $2,480 a month was their payment. They're $29,800 behind in their payment. Over 60 months, they're going to have to pay $496 a month to cure the arrearage?
Correct.
In the bankruptcy?
That's absolutely correct.
Will they be able to afford to do that?
They can, because we're eliminating a whole bunch of other expenses, and we're treating that second mortgage, which they...
Yeah, but we've gotten rid of the second mortgage payment.
Which is now an unsecured debt.
We've gotten rid of the $2,000 in credit card payments.
Right. So the bottom line is you take a lighter, Brian, and you burn up your credit card debt of $80,000. You burn up your $75,000 second mortgage, and it costs you $500 a month for 60 months.
Well, in this case, that's $800 and something a month.
That's in essence
but yes,
where you're at.
And even then, we'll take it. We'll cover a little bit more of this in the next segment before we get to our next case study. You could also potentially do a loan modification in that Chapter 13.
Well, that's the exciting opportunity that still exists inside of Chapter 13.
When we move into the next segment to cover it, we're going to talk about that. I thank people for listening and watching. We'll be back with the Financial Crisis Talk Center.